So Tracy is one of the best communicators that we have. I think she does a stellar job at really asking amazing questions. And that's one of the things we learned in our pharmaceutical sales training was how to ask questions. But I think what's really great with Tracy is she does it naturally, just as one of her strengths. And so then having the training on it has just really taken her level to a whole nother expertise. And so she's going to share with really great ways to ask questions so that you're not data dumping, you're not monopolizing the conversation, and most of all, you don't feel sales. I wanted to start by saying this. I think innately as human beings, we always feel like it's our obligation to answer a question in life in general. If somebody asks us a question, we just feel like we're obligated to answer. And here's the switch that's got to happen is that you're not obligated to answer the question. And most of the time, people pretty much know the answer to the question anyway, and you're just helping guide them or helping wanting to understand more, which Tracy's going to get into. But it is really a skill set to switch from immediately having to answer a question to asking questions and understanding more, which Tracy's going to go over with you. The other point that I wanted to make is that a lot of the questions that we get are relative to the person's opinion. People are asking questions. Remember, most of the questions that they're asking are relative to their opinion, not necessarily yours. So with that start, I am going to turn it over to Miss Tracy. And I think I'll stay here instead of leave.
Yeah, that's fine.
Unless I need to leave or whatever, we'll figure it out. But I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can get to the meat of it and do what you're so great at doing. So take it over, T.
Thanks. You can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're good to stay there. That's perfectly fine. Actually, this call came about from a dual live just like this, okay? I'm going to, Julie Kalaniku and I call her Jules, we are success partners. And so we were doing a live video and someone popped up and asked a question. And the interaction that took place after that is what led to this conversation today, okay? Story. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on me. As Shay said, we both come from pharmaceuticals. And, and she had said that I ask a lot of questions. And you know what I've learned? It's gotten to a point where I'm uncomfortable answering a question unless I get more information. Because unless it is, what is 4 + 4 = 8, kind of like black and white, then there are so many nuances to what that person is thinking. And so, and like Shay said, people may already know the answer, but if you just give them a black and white opinion, an answer that is swayed by opinion, there's some subjectivity to it, you're not going to have an opportunity to sway that opinion. You're not going to have an opportunity to have an influence on what they're thinking. But if you ask questions and you get them thinking, that gives you credibility. It shows that you're listening to them, that they matter, what they're asking matters. So a little bit of like foreground on that. I will tell you that the way that I describe where I grew up in sales, I grew up in a very fast, high stress, okay? Like, look at how busy doctors are, all right? I know you might be sitting in a waiting room and see a rep go back and think, that's why he's late. No, honey, that is not why he's running late, because he usually is walking up with a pen in his hand saying, you need a signature. So you had to be fast and you had to be a good listener, because if somebody asked you a question and you didn't give them the information they were looking for, you didn't really answer it, then they were not ever going to want to talk to you again. Because this is a relationship business where you're calling on the same people over and over and over again. So if by the 4th time I go in to see this guy, and it doesn't matter how cute I am, if I'm a bimbo and I don't answer what he's asking, or I try and just vomit information all over him, he is going to run for the hills when I come in. So it was really critical for us to hone our observation skills, listening skills, be able to read an environment. It was not an easy job. So Julie and I were on this call together in our group, and a girl pops up with something. She said, hey, do you guys test for ketosis, and and every time I think about doing Freedom and Hope, I read something and I get scared. Don't worry about the logistics of what we're talking about. But her response, even though she was probably trying to be hospitable to this person, because, if someone has the courage to speak up on a live, because that's not easy for everybody, she's there, she's listening, she's engaged. And so I know part of Julie's response was trying to be hospitable to her, but she did not address what she said at all. And I remember, like I told you before at the beginning of the call, I am very uncomfortable answering a question without getting more information. That is just part of who I am now. And so when she started to talk, I was like, what is she doing? I'm saying that not because what she did was horrible, but it went against every fiber of my Sales 101 background, right? And Julie has asked me historically to give her feedback in regards to conversations. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is awesome, because she could actually go back and watch it. Like, I thought this is a great opportunity for me to give her concrete feedback. So we began discussing what had happened. So when she asked those, Julie said, oh no, we're not in ketosis right now, and I'm really fluffy. And, and if and the thing with Freedom and Hope is you got to think about your sleep. How much sleep are you getting, and stress levels, and what about your eating window? And I mean, she started talking about all of these moving pieces to the program. And in my mind, what I heard this girl say was, do you test for ketosis? That's all I heard. And that she had some fear about implementing a program. That's what I heard. And I would have probably said, it sounds like you're reading something that has scared you. So why don't you, behind the scenes, since we're on a live video, send me a message and tell me a little bit more about that. And then as far as do you test for ketosis, I'm thinking, does she not want to spend money on whatever it is that you need to test with? Is she scared to prick her finger? I don't know why she asked that question. So I probably wouldn't answer with, yes, I do. I'd be like, well, I mean, I have, and I do, but why are you asking? Tell me more about what you're thinking. With me growing up in pharma, you really had to get to the point. And how can you really get to the point if you're not really sure what the question is? Like what Shay said earlier, is Shakeology healthy? Well, I could vomit a whole lot of information all over you, or I could ask one clarifying question and you might say, is it going to help my cholesterol? Well, that just saved me from typing 80 bullet points, right? Or, going on and on and on. So I have a couple examples for you. I sold a poop drug. And if I had a doctor say to me, if I had a lunch, because that's typically the only time that we ever got much of a conversation, they said, well, I hear Movantic's expensive. All right. I would say, oh, that's, thank you for sharing that with me. Tell me more. Was it a copay? Have you heard that it's a copay, or have you had problems getting it covered? Maybe gotten some callbacks from a pharmacy? And then I would be quiet. And I would endure the uncomfortable silence probably for a moment while he thought about where did I hear that? Because oftentimes an objection is not as big of a deal in their head and in their world as it is in yours. Okay. And they might say, well, actually it was a cash paying patient and I forgot to give him a copay card, or, so it's typically not as bad as you would have thought it was going to be. But the old Tracy, when she first started out in pharmaceuticals, if he said, I hear it's expensive, I would have been like, what do you mean it's expensive? It's on all the formulary plans. We have AstraZeneca has an amazing patient assistance program. I mean, if you just get them set up with that, they're going to get it for free. And I mean, you don't have to do any of the work. And don't ever let a patient leave here without a copay card, because you need to put some of that cost back on AstraZeneca. Blah, 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 blah. And he would have tuned me out within the first 6 seconds of me rambling on. And so that is why it was so critical for me to learn this skill set. So I'm going to share another example that I think you could relate to, since not everybody that watches this is in pharmaceuticals. All right, so say you've got this couple and they go car shopping. Okay. It's a young couple, husband, wife. She's like 6 or 7 months pregnant. So she's got the cute baby bump going on. And they walk on a car lot just to look. All right. They're not sure what they want, but the hubby actually wants like a little 2-seater weekend, car, like 5-speed, something fun. So that when his parents come and watch the baby, he and his wife can go and, zip through the hills and have a good time. But the car salesman does not ask any questions. He's like, hey, how you doing? My name's Joe. They shake. He's like, let me show you what we got over here. And he takes them up to this Honda Odyssey, this minivan that is huge and definitely not 2 doors. And it's got all the bells and whistles and it's amazing. But that's not what they wanted. And so then he's like, and then we have this SUV over here. And, and they spend an hour on the car lot. And this couple is too polite to say, dude, this is not what we want. And the car salesman gives him his business card and thinks he has made a great relationship because they listened to me for a whole hour. And they've got a couple brochures and they leave.
They never come back.
Are they ever going to go back to that salesman? So I share that with you so you can maybe, they probably would ask questions realistically, but I wanted to share something that you could put yourself in their shoes and be like, oh, that would be so annoying, right? I'm going to give you 4 concrete tips, all right? And none of these are earth-shattering. They're not rocket science, but I really feel like they will serve you well, okay? So, number 1, when someone asks a question or makes a statement that seems like it's an objection, don't immediately go into fix-it mode or panic mode, okay? Look at it, because this is a conversation, all right? So just ask a clarifying question. So, for example, isn't Shakeology high in sugar? Instead of a response like, oh, I don't think so. 70 superfoods and it only has this amount. It's organic cane sugar. How much more could you ask for? Okay. Instead, validate them. That's a great question. I'm so glad you're actually paying attention to sugar because, my gosh, isn't that stuff the devil? Do you have a number in your head that you'd like to stay within for a meal? Or, and that's not avoiding the question. That's acknowledging what they said, telling them that's a great question. Tell me more. And then endure the uncomfortable silence and wait for an answer. And depending on their response, you might need to ask more questions, or you can get to the point and tell them, it has 6 to 7 grams of sugar in it, which is about the amount in 1/3 of a banana. Is that reasonable to you? Do you think that is a low amount for a nutrient-dense meal? So tip number 2 is, I'm not used to doing these with Shay sharing the screen. Tip number 2, never ask why, okay? Never start a question with why. Mm-hmm. It puts people on the defense. My husband could say, why are you doing it that way? Or he could say, what made you do it that way? There's a big difference in how people respond to that. So instead of saying, why do you ask? You could say, that's an interesting question. What makes you ask? Or, just so I'm sure I understand what you're saying and asking, can you give me a little bit more information behind the question? Yeah. And I use this all the time. I'll be like, just so I don't vomit a bunch of details all over that you don't want, can you give me a little bit more as to what you're asking? And people do not mind that because they'd much rather, feel like you're listening to them. And people like to talk. They like to talk. So
I've got a couple of my favorites if I could share.
Yes.
I'll share. So some of my favorites are share with me, what your thoughts are on X, Y, and Z. Tell me more about, tell me more about what you're looking to accomplish. Or help me understand. So it's help me, share with me, tell me more about, and those don't put people on the defensive, because Tracy's absolutely right. Why remind you of when you're like in elementary school and your teacher's like, and you're like, when did you do your homework? When did you do that? You're like, oh God, I'm like automatically on the defensive when we hear why. So reframing it, just like Tracy says, is going to really have you be so much more approachable to the people that you're talking to.
Yeah, Brett just commented, swap why with what. Yeah, that's a good tip. Yeah, and help me understand is always one of my go-tos. That's a big one. Okay, so tip number 3, and it's funny that I would say not to the point of paranoia, because there's a degree of paranoia in pharmaceutical sales. So always assume that there is more to the story behind the question. If you switch your thinking that way, kind of like, no doesn't mean no, it means not right now. Same with a question. There's always more to the story, okay? So don't be afraid to say something like, I don't want to kill you with a bunch of details, so tell me more about this question, like what's driving it, or help me understand what information you're looking for. So for instance, if you asked, is Shakeology healthy? I would say, well, in what terms? Because that's a loaded question. And I want to make sure that I answer it according to what you're asking. Is there something in particular that you're hoping to resolve, like in this, as you like transition to a healthier lifestyle? So there's always more behind the question, always. And then number four, always proceed with confidence and a heart for serving. All right. One of the things that people always tell me about my strengths is that I am sincere and I am genuine. And it's true, I am. And one thing that if I get uncomfortable, like yesterday I had to go live in my group and tell the people that were freebie people, like, okay, well, tomorrow's decision day, I'm gonna have to kick you out. And it was really awkward. And so I told him, I was like, this is kind of awkward, I'm sorry, but but I really, the whole time I just kept saying, talk to them with love, talk to them with a heart for serving. Because guess what? People are skeptical. They absolutely are. And if you think about it, they have every right to be. We were all skeptical at once too. You got to put yourself in their shoes. So if you treat it as a conversation, all right, not a sales call, where you're really trying to help them, then they're going to see that you are truthful, you are trustworthy, you're listening to them and validating them. And then eventually they're going to be like, you know what? I really like this girl. I really think that she cares. She wants to help me. I always tell my cold market people that if I'm getting close to getting a cold market person on the phone, I always reassure them, I am not in the business of convincing. All right. So there is no pressure here. This is just a conversation. And I'll tell them, don't take it the wrong way. I'm not in the business of convincing, because you got to want it. It's not going to go well for either one of us if I end up talking you into something.
Perfect. You guys see why she does such a great job? And I think you'll agree, Trey. Well, you will agree. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And at first it might, that automatic, oh my gosh, that fix it mode. I have to answer this question. I'm on the pedestal and the podium and I've got to speak, compared to as you get used to asking questions, like Tracy was saying, it almost made her uncomfortable when Julie didn't ask a question, because she's like, oh my gosh, this is so against the fibers of what I would normally do. And so the more you do it, the more comfortable it'll become.
It'll serve you well in every area of your life. Because as Shay was saying this, I have my friends, they'll all be like, you're such a good listener. And oh my gosh, I always feel so much better after I talk to you. Well, maybe some of it has to do with that I use this in every part of my life. If Brooks was like, I had a really bad day. Oh, tell me more. I mean, I can't not ask a question.
Brett's got a good question. He says, I struggle to know when to stop asking questions and move on to the sale. Well, this is really good because I think sometimes we could use the questions as a crutch to not get to, at the end of the day, we're here to move forward. Kind of like she had to do with her free group she was talking about. I feel like I go on asking too many questions. Tracy, how do you know when the time is right to move forward?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I actually had a live call the other night with someone, and I came out of the bedroom and I said to my husband, I am so grateful for my sales background, because I knew exactly when it was time to say, all right, girl, what you want to do? You want to do the challenge pack for 160 or Shakeology for 130? And I know people struggle with that. So, have you met their needs? Like, here, let's think of a punch list. All right. So if you're having a conversation with someone, whether it's in live or in the chat or live, hopefully you're taking a few notes, like what's their goal? What were their questions? Like, what were their concerns? All right. What are they? Here's a good one. All right. People are either at a 10, a 50, or a 90%. All right. They are never anything else. All right. Somebody who's only 10% thinking that they're going to join you, you have a lot of work to do. All right. You're probably not even going to get them on the phone yet. Then if they're a 50, then they're sitting on the fence. And that it's going to come down to you answering questions and not making them believe that they can do it, but helping them see that they're getting freaking a meal delivered to their house for 30 days. They're going to get accountability. They're going to feel better. They're going to have energy, blah, 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 blah. And that they're ready. Okay. And then 90, you're going to hear words from them. Like, they're excited. They can't wait. I'm thinking I'm going to work out at this time of day. And those are some questions that I use with people to test, like, how close they are. I'll be like, well, so we've talked about Shakeology. We've talked about this. Like, when do you think you're going to want to have yours? Are you going to have it for breakfast? And then if they're like, well, I hadn't really thought about it because I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. Or they'll say, oh, I'm definitely doing it for lunch. I've already got a blender at work. So you can ask little questions that are going to help you get closer. And then, you can do, what was it called? Trial close. That's what it was. You could do a trial close and just say, so I know your time is valuable. I don't want to feel like you're on the jury or the stand and I'm just questioning you. So are you wanting to do this? I just want to test the waters. Like, are you ready? There's nothing wrong with asking that. They're not going to not ever talk to you again because you asked. So are you, I'm testing the waters here. Are you thinking that you're going to do this? Because I am so excited to get you started. You are going to freaking rock this. Mm-hmm. It is uncomfortable. Even I get a teensy weensy bit uncomfortable at that point. Not every time, but nobody grows in their comfy comfort zone.
So if you've addressed their objections and have done a great job with that, you've earned the right at that point to say, so what's holding you back? Let's get started, kind of thing.
And if you're closing, if you are asking them if they're ready with a serving heart, okay, then if you're really looking at this from a caring, kind, compassionate standpoint, aren't you going to be freaking excited for them? Think about it. Like, I get so damn excited before I get someone started. So I'll be like, oh my gosh, I am so excited. Are you ready? Let's do this, and if they're not, that's okay. But then they're going to hear it from you. They're going to know, like, wow, this person really cares about me. So I hope that helps.